with your car? What is this? What is this? Eh? What are you doing here?
The scene opens at a mechanic shop. Winnie stepped down from her car, talking over the phone. She was ranting proudly of how she can never ever have anything to do with a broke guy. Parked beside her was Phil. Phil was more drawn to what he can see, a sexy, beautiful young lady, and from that instant, he liked her so much. Meanwhile, earlier that day, Winnie was seen abusing and rudely talking to some kind-hearted people who came to her aid when her car broke down in the middle of the road, showing how rude and arrogant she is. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Another day while jogging, Phil saw that same girl from the mechanic and told his cousin brother about the girl and how she makes him feel, but he just laughed at him, knowing fully well that definitely this will be a waste of time because everyone knows her. She's so arrogant and has no respect for anyone, but he wasn't moved. He believes everyone should be given a chance to love. Okay, as he pondered on what to do to get his fantasy dates, he came up with a plan. Well, Phil, whose full name was Olamide Banks Jr., son of a multi-millionaire, he definitely has everything a woman could ever ask for. But he doesn't just want some gold digger in his life, he seeks his own Juliet. They play. In order to get her to like him for who he is, he came up with a plan to switch places with Jake, his cousin, and make him pretend to be Jake's Banks while he's just Phil, his broke friend. At a planned meeting, Jake met with Winnie and introduced himself. Winnie was wowed to be speaking with the Banks family and became immediately drawn to him because of his wealth. After that day, they met again in an eatery and talked for a while, and good thing, Winnie stayed just a few blocks from theirs. Another day, Phil planned to visit Winnie and give her a gift, a Rolex watch in Jake's name as a messenger boy, but in order to look poor, he changed it to something low. Here we go. Shouting at his boyfriend as usual over the phone, she opened the door while still yelling at her phone. Just then, her boyfriend broke up with her. In anger, she lashed on her poor visitor with her sharp mouth. She rained insults on him and he just stood there like a tree. But before he left, he gave her a little taste of her own medicine. Phil was disappointed, humiliated, and ready to end this now. But Jake encouraged him in a mocking way to continue to endure, to enjoy. The next day, Winnie came to repay the visit, and Jake got an opportunity to introduce Phil as his poor, struggling friend. No wonder. Such an hungry girl, she came to somebody's house to collect wine. She met Phil on the way out and tried to apologize to him, but Phil was ready for her. Actually, these two were better off together.
Bad mood, you say? I bet you don't blame it on bad mood. You're just a bad person. You don't have respect for me.
What's wrong with this one? Oh, because I'm trying to apologize.
Apology my foot. Wait, is that
Why not? From that day on, this became their normal habit to always exchange words anywhere their path crosses. They even tried fighting on the wayside. Now she has seen someone worse than her. Phil, as usual, came again to deliver gifts to her in Jake's name. But this time, she was a bit calm and invited him in. This could be a setup. As he entered, she started to insult his life. That he's not even ashamed he's living and depending on his friend, who is the same age as him. But Phil wasn't quiet this time. He also finished her too. That the reason why her boyfriend broke up with her was because of her bad, stinking character. That there is no one on earth worthy of being punished by God by having you as a girlfriend. And so on. The arguments, insults, and fights continued even at the dinner table. After that day, Winnie came to visit Phil, but as usual, it turned into another section of fighting, abusing, and getting on each other's neck.
No, you should be ashamed of yourself. You sit here all day doing nothing.
He just left her and walked away. They both now have nicknames for each other. Phil goes by Houseboy, while Winnie as Mannerless. Perfect name for her. One thing about this whole thing was that the constant fighting with each other made them draw closer to each other, and all day long Winnie only talked about how Phil gets on her neck and little about the main reason she's actually there, which is Jake. In order to keep the ball rolling and make her feel a little bit attached to Jake, he asked her out on a date, but throughout the whole night, Jake waited and Winnie didn't show up. He became furious. Meanwhile, Winnie was severely down with a fever, and that's why she missed the date. When Jake came home and started ranting, she just collapsed in front of him because of excessive fatigue and fever, but Jake just left her there and walked away. Phil, realizing what has happened, rushed and took her to the hospital. He stayed with her till he could get Jake to come over and see her. Jake came in and took all the credits, but this stayed long and left, leaving her alone in the hospital. Phil doesn't want to leave her side, and stayed with her all day till the morning. When she woke up, she was told that Phil was with her all night. She was shocked and surprised. My fighting mate. She was discharged later on and taken home. When Phil came to visit her again on behalf of Jake, she was nicer to him, knowing what he did for her at the hospital. She said thank you for the first time. What just happened? Phil was filled with joy that finally she's becoming nice. Phil was able to convince Jake to go visit her that night, but Jake had another plan up his sleeves. He began to make advances on her, but Winnie refused him because, why now? I'm just recovering and all he could think of is sex. Later that night, Phil met Winnie outside taking some air. When Phil heard that Jake wanted to betray him and take advantage of his girl, he became very angry but had to keep it in so his plan won't get revealed. Wait, did these two just talk like normal people? For the first time, they had a real conversation without exchanging words. Our Romeo and Juliet has just started. Phil came back angry and lashed on Jake, reminding him of his place in this game. With time, they started to bond together as friends, though once in a while they chip in some of their bad-mouth attitude. But they were cool with it. At the house, while Winnie was sitting with Jake, her whole heart and attention was on Phil. She kept staring at him, fantasizing in her mind. I guess she started to grow feelings for him. Even back at home, she couldn't stop thinking about Phil. Wow, this is love. What else? The next day, she invited Phil to talk with him. She opened up to him about the way she feels for him, and she believes he also feels the same way too. But how about my friend? He asked. I'm not down with your friend. I like you. And why can't you love me too? Phil tried to make her understand he's broke and can't afford to take care of her, but she doesn't mind. Winnie asked him to tell her more about himself. Phil said that he's a graduate of business admin and would like to start up a printing press business, just as he did while he was still in school. But this time, he needs 10 to 15 million to make his big. She asked him if his friend Jake could help him out, but he said that his friend's family has already done enough already, that it would be too much asking for such an amount from them. As they talked, they got lost in each other's eyes and ended up kissing. But soon realized themselves. Things started to get a bit awkward and Phil decided to take his leave. At home, Phil danced and rejoiced, celebrated. Yes, finally! When he tried using his girl power to get something for Phil, she calmly asked Jake for 15 million, and after she told him it's just for some little stuff like that, he decided to give it to her after getting a wonderful peck on the cheek. At dinner, Jake told Phil that she's asking for 15 million. Really? 15 million? Yeah, that she needs it for something like that. Phil had his wild guess what it was actually for and decided to write her a check. Later, Jake met with Winnie and gave her the check. Not after pulling her legs for a kiss. Phil came over again and was shocked when Winnie handed him the check. Oh my god, is this girl for real? Phil was overwhelmed with happiness that this was actually happened. This can only be true love, I tell you. As days passed by, they enjoyed each other's company, shared wonderful time together as a couple. But that wasn't all. Winnie knew in her heart that there was one more thing left to do to be happy with Phil, and that's to break up with Jake. But things turned around as Phil came down and introduced himself as the real Olamide Banks and Jake as his cousin. What? Unlike what we see in movies, Winnie was angry and mad at both of them for playing her all this while. She stormed out, and I can't believe this. Though Phil pleaded with her, but she refused, that he lied to her. She tried to avoid him. Meanwhile, Phil was drowning his sorrows in alcohol and became useless to himself. Same also with Winnie, as she cried all night thinking about Phil. Good thing her friend was able to talk sense into her and get her to give him another chance and forgive him, because normally, if he didn't act broke, she would have just loved him for his money, and the love would be fake, not as genuine as what you guys have now. So just let it go. One day they met by the wayside and talked things through. Having missed him all this while, she forgave him. Aww, I need to learn how to kiss, so I love when people appreciate the good things of life. And if you would like to appreciate me in your own little way, subscribing will be the whole world to me. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time. Movie Exploits.